Hi, today I wanted to share with you a little warm-up that I do before going for a run. Warming up for running isn't just about warming up the legs. We also want to make sure that we're getting the core active and engaged, that we're getting some mobility through the thoracic spine, and really working through our ankles and feet. So I've got a little melt roller here, and I just start sitting on top of the roller, and I'm just rocking forward and back on my sits bones. I always begin by getting a little bit of hydration into my pelvis, into my SI joint, and into my low back and hips. And then I just bring my sits bones on the feet side of my roller. I bring my hands back, and I want to come into a tuck through my pelvis. And now I'm doing what's called a tail triangle glide. So I'm just rolling up and down basically on my sacrum. I'm not landing right on top of my tailbone, and I'm stopping just at the top of the sacrum where the SI joints are. I can take my legs over to one side and just swirl around on that side of my pelvis, still staying on the left side of my sacrum, but getting a little more into my glutes. And then I can just take it over to the other side. In the melt practice, we call this gliding, and in the gliding, we're preparing the tissue for what's called a shear, and also just exploring for any areas of what we call stuck stress. I can go now into what's called my deep hip, and I'm going to just let this knee fall down, and I'm just going to swirl around through my whole glute area and stopping just above that greater trochanter. And this is where all the external hip rotators are, which are really important that they're nicely hydrated and mobile, right? That I can move and swing my hip, but also that we have some stability. So then I'm going to stop and just fan this knee up and down. It's called the shear. And then I'm just going to wait, take a little breath in and exhale. And seeing as I'm here, I'm going to roll right onto my side, come down onto my forearm, and I'm going to get onto what we call the side hip. So the side hip is more where the gluteus medius and the piriformis are. And I'm on the pelvis, so I'm not getting up into sort of the waist area, and I'm stopping just above the greater trochanter, and I'm just rolling up and down. And if I find a spot that feels just a little bit, a little bit tender, I'm just going to tighten up my glide a little bit, just kind of work that area. And then I'm going to stop with the straight leg. I'm just going to roll my hip forward and back over the roller. And then I pause, take a breath in, and exhale. And then I come up and head over to the other side. So I'm going to start into the deep hip, where I'm just letting this knee fall out. I really don't have any load in my upper arm. It's pretty relaxed through my shoulder and elbow. And I don't need to spend much time here. In melt, we say we want to get in and get out. And so just a few breaths worth, just getting the tissue prepared, gliding up and down. Then I pause, I go into my shear, and I just move the leg up and down. This melt roller is a soft roller, and so if you do have a hard roller at home, it can be done on it, but you don't want to be putting hard pressure into the tissue. Really, we just want to be using the soft roller where we're being very gentle and kind to our tissue, and it tends to be a little more accepting of the movement. So we're just gliding, going up and down into the side hip, and then I'm going to pause and just roll forward and back, and we just do it enough for a few breaths. And then after this shear, we wait, take a focused breath in, and then exhale. And I'm just going to come off the roller. So sometimes I do just that, and then I want to go into some of my running specific warm-ups. So I take my feet about armpit width apart, a little wider than hip width, and you can see my toes are pointed forward, and I just have my elbows into the side of my knees just to brace a bit. But what this also does is it gets my back nice and strong. So as I'm pressing into the side of my legs, I've got my chest up, I'm engaging through my core, but I'm also activating the back muscles. And then as I just bounce from one side to the other, a few great things are happening. One, I'm getting this movement through my ankles. I'm active in my feet here. So I've got my toes spread out. I've got the fascia at the bottom of the feet that are really starting to activate and get some nice mobility in there and just warming up. I'm also working in through my knee joints and my hip joints. Now, if it bothers your knees to go this deep, you can always hang on to something and like a doorknob or railing and just go to where you can, right? And not go too far, never go into pain. And I'm just gonna bounce there a little bit, and then I'm gonna take a breath in. So trunk stability and really good strength through the back and the core is critical to running, as well as having some mobility in the thoracic spine. So now with a nice straight back, I'm gonna lift my arm, and then as I'm rotating, I don't wanna just think about going over, but I wanna think of reaching and reaching and reaching, and then I'll do the other side. So I'm anchoring with this arm, using that to help get the strength in my back and the lift in my chest, and as I go, I'm reaching my arm, reaching, 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 and as the arm and my eyes are following, I'm getting this mobility in through my rib cage. And then I'm just going to place my hands down and then walk my feet in and take it out to a plank position. So a lot of core work is important in running, that you've got the strength in your core and your center to create lift and lightness in the legs. It's your core that carries you. So in a strong plank, you're pushing through the arms, your head's in line with the spine, and I'm just gonna roll forward and back on my toes. So I'm stretching through my toes, I'm mobilizing the joints in my forefoot, I'm working through my ankle joint. I want my ankle joints to be really nicely mobile and supple. And at the same time, I'm breathing and using the strength of my shoulder girdle and my abdominals to support me. So hip mobility is important to running. So from this position, I'm going to step this foot forward. I want to plant that foot, toes pointed forward, while keeping the length in my back. What we don't want to have is the back rounding. So really challenging yourself to draw the shoulder blades down, pull your sternum forward, and I'm just stepping and stepping. Now I'm not holding because I want mobility, I want range of motion. I don't need flexibility to run. I need my joints to be able to move. And here, good. Then I'm gonna step my feet a little wider apart, take a breath in. And as I exhale, I'm gonna hinge at my hips and reach my hand across to my opposite ankle, and then I come back. And I reach across. So here I'm working again on mobility through the hips. I'm working on lengthening through the lower body and my hamstrings and my calves. I'm working on core strength and stability, so I know my abdominals and my back are strong and stable when I head into my run. And rotation through the shoulder joint. Good, and then come in. And again, I'm just warming up. I don't need to do a lot of repetitions. I just need to do the movements 5 or 6 times, and then I just give myself a little stretch, and then come back to center. Good. So then I'm gonna come into a seated position here, where I've got my hips in external rotation and my hips in internal rotation. And I want to practice, I'll just spin here because I'm going to move. I want to practice moving through my hips, internal, external rotation. So I'm going to bring my arms in front, and I just simply swivel in my hips, and I come into the other side. And I want to do that a few times. So internal and external hip rotation is really important for running. And even though we're only running forward and back, we need that movement in the hips. We tend to get really tight as runners in the piriformis muscles. A lot of people who run claim that, or complain that their hips are tight. So we go here. And then I'm going to place my hands here, so I'm rotated. Now watch what I'm doing through this leg here. I'm going to lift my knee and my foot, and I'm going to reach it back. So now I'm getting some hip extension, but activation of the glute med and the glute. And then I'm going to lift that leg up. I'm keeping my chest up, so I've got some rotation through the thoracic spine. I've got the engagement of the back, the engagement of the core, and I'm lifting for glute engagement. And then I pause, take a breath, so I have control, and then I lower it all the way down. So then I come up, I transition to the other side. I bring my chest up. I lift my leg. I bring my leg back. So, and I'm not just bringing it back. I want to really reach that leg back so that I'm challenging the range in the front of hip and lengthening the thigh, but really challenging the activation of the glutes while I hold this rotated position. Now I'm going to lift it and lift. Chest is up. Back is strong. Abdominals are supporting. And I lift 4. Good. And then I'm going to hold the leg up while keeping my posture. This is work. You'll find if you follow along with me that it's work holding the chest up and the back strong. And I hold it, reaching my leg back. Can I get a little more range of that leg? Take a breath. And then I bring it all the way down. Good. And then I come back to center. And I just have to get myself up. So I come back into this position. I always like take that opportunity to really stretch through the feet and open up the toes. And I give myself just a nice little lengthening, relax my head. Take a breath in and exhale all the way up to stand. It's important that you finish your warm up where you're going to move from, which is on your feet, and a breath up and exhale. So that's just an example of one of the warm-ups that I do before going for a run. So let me know what you think, leave a comment, and I'd love to get your feedback.